Good morning. Federal troops are on their way to Miami. President Bush ordered them into South Florida late last night after local officials complained angrily of problems in getting food, water, and other essentials distributed to the victims of Hurricane Andrew. The troops, between 2,000 and 5,000 of them, will join the 3,000 National Guardsmen already on duty in trying to deal with Florida's growing frustration today, Friday, August the 28th, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Bryant, Gumbel, and Katherine, Couric.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Friday morning. What a week this has been. As we began the week, we began by looking at Andrew's potential, and now it has come ashore, and it's winding up to be much, much, much worse and more of a disaster than we thought it might be.
That's right, Bryant. You mentioned growing frustration. I think it's building to even more than that. I think a lot of people in South Florida are in deep trouble. They really need help. And hopefully those federal troops will be able to do something about that.
That's only part of the problem. You and I have been sitting here talking about it. I mean, people are actually sitting there, and some people just have no communications, no food, no water, can't get out from where they are, and they're afraid. They're just sitting there.
Really dangerous.
We're going to try to catch up on the latest. 4 days after South Florida was battered by Hurricane Andrew, federal troops are moving in to join the relief effort. President Bush called out the cavalry after storm victims complained long and loud that they weren't getting the help or the essentials that they needed. Noah Nelson has a report from Homestead Air Force Base where the troops are set to arrive.
These are pleas for help to the government, scrolled on the rooftops by victims of Hurricane Andrew. The desperation and frustration levels are mounting as food, water, and other essentials run thin.
We don't have milk, we don't have pepper, we don't have nothing, we don't even have a house to live in.
You can't even get milk for your baby?
No, you can't. They're not helping doing nothing.
Ice has become a precious commodity. One more thing not enough of to go around. Profiteers have been selling ice for $5 and $10 a bag. With 63,000 homes destroyed, more than 250,000 people in Florida are homeless.
And we were really praying and asking God to save us. We didn't care about the furniture or stuff.
Did you lose everything?
Yes, we lost everything, but thank God we're alive.
And do you have any insurance?
No, we don't have nothing.
That was NBC's Noah Nelson reporting from Homestead, Florida. Some of the military planes en route to Florida this morning are actually carrying mobile kitchens to help in feeding the hungry and the newly homeless in South Florida. With more on that, NBC's Mike Jensen is also in Homestead at City Hall this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Bryant. This will be the staging area for those kitchens, and believe me, it is really needed. I've spent the last couple of days walking around Homestead, flying over in a chopper, talking to the people, and as you know, this was the hardest hit area. The kitchens will be coming in, they have been told, sometime this morning. Initially, there'll be 4 of them, then another 6, then another 10, and they'll be able to feed 6,000 people with prepared meals. That's out of a total population of about 50,000, and about 30,000 of those are still in town. A lot of them are sleeping on the sidewalks. It's a very bad situation here, and they're really happy that this food is coming in.
Mike, as you mentioned, 6,000 barely puts a dent in the problem. Of the others, I mean, are communications getting out that food is even going to be available?
Yeah, Bryant, there has been food here. Right over my shoulder here, there's a distribution center where people have been able to come and pick up bulk food and bottled water and powdered milk. So they haven't been starving. They haven't been going hungry. On the other hand, they have to go about 40 miles in order to buy anything in a store. There is no electricity here. There's no water here. And this will be their first chance to have a cooked meal. These meals are in tins, and the Army cooks, 3 cooks assigned to each one of these portable kitchens, will dump them into boiling water, and the folks will be able to have a hot meal for the first time since the hurricane.
Mike, what's the mindset of most of the people you're coming across down there? Is bitterness setting in? Do most think that the rest of the country truly, fully appreciates what they're being asked to go through?
Well, I think mainly they're just thinking about themselves, Brian, and how they're going to survive from one day to another. It is so dispirited. I mean, the people have lost their homes. As you know, I was in Kuwait after the war, and I was in Los Angeles after the riots, and in San Francisco after the earthquake, and at Hugo in Charleston, and I've never seen anything like this. This is going to be an enormous rebuilding job. The people are also happy that they're going to be getting in generators here The Army is bringing in some medical supplies, medevac units, and some cots and some blankets and some water. So the hope is that things will begin to turn up, but this is a long-term process.
All right, Mike Jensen of Homestead, Florida. Thank you, Mike. A Florida telethon last night raised more than $2 million for hurricane relief. Several TV stations got together on the project, which lasted 2 hours. Among the many who called in, President Bush.
Just say without grandstanding, but hopefully trying to join in. And Barbara and I would like to send what we can, and we'll get that in the mail tomorrow to the American Red Cross.
In all, more than 100,000 people called in to donate to the Red Cross relief effort. We'll talk with the president of the American Red Cross a little bit later in this half hour. In addition to calling in that telethon, the White House announced last night that President Bush is canceling his campaign and vacation plans for the next few days so that he can monitor the hurricane relief effort. While much of the national attention is being focused on Florida, the cleanup is also continuing in Louisiana, where Andrew furiously came ashore on Wednesday. There, sugarcane crops have been flattened, seriously hurting that state's already troubled economy. Agriculture officials say the losses could top $1 billion, and power remains out for more than 100,000 homes and businesses. And on the heels of Andrew, there's another storm hitting U.S. territory this morning, this time in the Pacific. Typhoon Omar has hit Guam with winds as high as 150 miles an hour. There are reports of considerable damage and at least 30 injuries from what's being described as one of the worst storms to hit Guam in years. Elsewhere this morning, officials in Russia are trying to find out what caused the crash of an Aeroflot jetliner about 120 miles from Moscow. All 82 people on that plane were killed when it went down in heavy fog while trying to land. U.S. warplanes are in the air over southern Iraq this morning, flying surveillance over the so-called no-fly zone. So far, they've not been challenged. The American planes are from the USS Independence. More on that now from NBC's Stan Bernard.
All back safe and sound. The first sorties of warplanes from the carrier Independence, the main launch pad for setting up the air exclusion zone over southern Iraq. The pilots took off in daylight to patrol up to Iraq's 32nd parallel and returned after dusk, their mission accomplished.
There was a little bit of nervousness, but you know, this is what we do. This is what we train for. We were busy just trying to keep our heads on a swivel, just trying to look out for other airplanes and look out for ourselves and make sure we were doing our mission. We were busy.
And you also did not detect any radar activity from the ground from a SAM site or anything like that?
Oh, we didn't detect any SAM activity out there at all.
President Bush described the operation as putting the lid on Saddam Hussein. Keeping the lid on will be a round-the-clock task. In the first 12 hours, Navy pilots flew 100 sorties. Stan Bernard, NBC News, on the carrier Independence in the Gulf.
And a final note, a strike at an auto parts plant in Ohio is forcing General Motors to shut down production this morning at its Saturn plant in Tennessee. About 2,400 members of the United Auto Workers went on strike Thursday at the plant in Lordstown, Ohio. That's where Saturn body parts are made. 7:08, time for us to move ahead with what's become a bad word this week, weather. Willard Scott has the day off. Al Roker is joining us. Don't take it personal.
No, not me.
Is Andrew history finally out?
Well, we've got remnants of it still. We'll feel some of that later today and on into tomorrow here in the Northeast. But for the most part, it's kaput. But it's certainly left a lot in its wake. Let's see what else is going on. You check out our national radar, and there are the remnants of Andrew. As you see in the southern part of our radar scan, you can see that heavy shower activity now working its way through Tennessee on into the Carolinas. Let's take a look. We also have severe weather expected today from Lakehurst, New Jersey, down to Raleigh, North Carolina. Strong risk of heavy thunderstorms, a slight risk of heavy storms right through western New York, Pennsylvania, and down on into the Ohio Valley. Here's the rest of the weather for the country today. As you'll see, we've got, again, plenty of sunshine out west. It's going to be hot, and I mean, we're talking hot. Temperatures well over 100. Possibility of some thunderstorms in the northern plains, but the bulk of the heavy weather now stretching from the western Great Lakes all the way down into the Gulf Coast, the western, I should say the eastern parts of the Gulf Coast, and again, the heavy risk of thunderstorms from North Carolina right on into central New Jersey, slight risk from western New York on down into South Carolina. That's what's going on around the country. Here's what's happening in your neck of the woods.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Scott Mayo. A cold start to the day. If you don't like cold temperatures, stay in bed a while. Things are going to warm up this afternoon. Sunny skies and 77 degrees with warmer winds. Tonight, we have clear skies with the temperature down to 55 degrees.
Coming up on 7:10. Now here's Mark.
All right, Al, thanks. On Close-Up this morning, Hurricane Andrew and the Red Cross. The devastation from Andrew is truly taxing the American Red Cross, already financially drained by an unusual number of disasters this year. That organization is being so hard-pressed to meet the needs of Andrew's victims that some rare criticism of the Red Cross is being heard in the disaster areas. Elizabeth Dole is president of the American Red Cross, and she's just back from the areas that were hardest hit. This morning, she's at our NBC News Bureau in Washington. Mrs. Dole, good morning.
Good morning, Bryant.
Having seen it firsthand, are Andrew's results far worse than you ever imagined?
It's absolutely incredible. It's just devastating. In fact, it does remind me of a war zone. It looks like Kuwait after the Persian Gulf War. I visited just after, and it really reminds me of that situation, Bryant. Absolutely incredible. And you know, it's interesting, many of the people that I talked with were just so thankful to be alive after this devastating hurricane. I think now, as time goes on, the extent of their tragic loss is setting in. And it's not the televisions and the things like that, it's their personal possessions, it's their, you know, sentimental family items that they don't have anymore, and it's just tragic. It really is.
Let's talk of the problems at hand.
Yes.
Kate Hale, the head of Dade County's emergency management, is blaming the Red Cross and federal agencies, in her words, for, quote, playing like a bunch of kids. What seems to be the problem?
Well, I think there was a little misunderstanding that the other night I mentioned 229 shelters had been set up for victims in Florida, and that we had sheltered 85,000 people. Kate disputed that, and you know, she's a very hard-working, very committed emergency relief worker who's very much concerned about the people there, but she was referring to Dade County when she said we had only 48 instead of 229. I was speaking of the entire state.
No, I understand that, but the problems go beyond just her comments. Are there coordination, cooperation problems between the American Red Cross and the other agencies that are trying to be of some assistance?
I think there's better coordination, but obviously there can be even more, no question, because, Bryant, this is being called perhaps the worst disaster in U.S. history. Now, when something of that big hits, obviously you've got to do even more. So I think all of us can do more, can do better. But I think in terms of overall coordination, you know, everybody is just working their hearts out to try to provide all of the relief possible. Now, we at this point are bringing in more volunteers. We have thousands of volunteers locally. We've also brought in 400 people from across the nation to help. There will be even more coming in. We have 81 emergency response vehicles. We'll be bringing in more. We'll be needing more warehouses that are secure, more distribution centers. But, you know, just for an example, yesterday we tried to go out with 25 of our emergency response vehicles loaded with food and water to areas where people are in need. We were held up for 4 hours, and, you know, this was just local government doing their job. They were concerned about security, so it took some extra hours to get the clearance to go. So this is going to happen. I think we need to have some patience, but people are terribly dedicated.
I don't want to let you get away without talking about money. In light of all the Red Cross has had to deal with this year, how financially strapped are you? How dry is your disaster fund?
Well, we have had, as you said, a record number of major disasters, more than ever in the history of the Red Cross. Our disaster relief fund is depleted. Now, we are urgently asking the American public to call their local Red Cross chapter or 1-800-842-2200. Please help, because if we're going to assist disaster victims to get back on their feet, then we have to get back on ours. We'll be there providing the aid, but we've got to get that disaster relief fund built up again.
All right, Mrs. Dole, I don't know if you can see it, but we are showing that number if people would like to help. It's toll-free number.
Thank you very much.
1-800-842-2200.
That will enable us to be there the next time. Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Dole, thanks very much. We're going to come on back in just a moment, 14 past the hour. We'll continue to check the relief effort after a break. This is Today on NBC.
Right now, lowest prices of the year on 92 Ramsey Pontiacs.
August is the best time of year to buy a new Pontiac. Tremendous model year closeout savings.
We have Iowa's biggest selection of 1992 Grand Prix.
We have dozens of new 92 Grand Ams, all at factory closeout prices. The 92 Sunbird is the perfect first car.
The 92 Transport, the perfect family vehicle. And I'll break my arm to sell you one.
See us today at 97th and Hickman. Thanks for watching.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday only at Pigeon's Home Furnishings. Save 40% off the original tagged prices on our entire stock of furniture, bedding, carpeting, accessories, and satellite systems, with special discounts on all appliances and home electronics. And with Pigeon's deferred billing, make no payments till March. 3 days of 40% savings, only at Pigeon's Home Furnishings.
Saving your mom!
The Carnival Shoes and Fashion. Save big dollars for back to school. Super special store-wide, like children's Atonic-based jogger. Carnival price just $19.88. Ladies Asics Gelevator. Carnival price just $21.88. Super special. Ladies and children's Ken's Champion Oxford. Just $16.88. Plus, Friday night, Saturday morning, take an additional 20 to 60% off selected items. Save to 60% Friday night, Saturday morning. Plus, win a free personal computer from the Carnival Landing Slim Shoe. Given away Labor Day. Don't miss Friday night, Saturday morning. The Carnival.
Okay, all you baseball know-it-alls, it's time for the WHO TV 13 and Wendy's Baseball Sports Quiz. Every Sunday from August 9th through the 30th, I'll ask a baseball trivia question during Sunday night's News Center 13 at 10. Go to your participating Wendy's, pick up a form, and register your answer. The winner will be announced on the following Fridays, live at 5. Winners each week will receive one-night stay at the Park Place Hotel in Kansas City and tickets to see a Kansas City Royals game. So step up to the plate, Central Iowa, and prove your baseball trivia knowledge.
As we noted at the top of this program, thousands of federal troops will be arriving in South Florida. President Bush mobilized the Army to assist in the relief effort following angry complaints over distribution problems with food, water, and other supplies in South Florida. President Bush's point man there coordinating the federal relief effort is Secretary of Transportation Andrew Card. This morning he's at Homestead Air Force Base in Florida, where the first federal troops will be arriving very shortly. Secretary Card, good morning to you.
Good morning.
We're quoting the number of 2,000 to 5,000 federal troops. There's a big difference. Can you give us a more specific number?
Well, we expect to be about 3,500 troops today, but it could be as high as 5,000. We know that the first flights will be in this morning. We'll be setting up kitchens. We expect to be able to serve meals this morning, probably 9 or 10 o'clock this morning. We will have meals ready to be eaten on the ground.
What else will those troops be doing, Secretary Card?
Well, our first responsibility is going to try to help address some of the basic needs that people have. Food, water, and shelter. We're going to get some generators in here to generate some electricity to support some of the centers that are set up around the country. Also to work with the American Red Cross to make sure that the distribution of food goes smoothly. There's a tremendous need here, and we're working with volunteers, with the National Guard, with the other Florida officials, with the Federal Emergency Management Agency. But today, the U.S. Army is here to help out, and it's going to make a big difference.
The big question a lot of folks in South Florida are asking this morning, Mr. Secretary, is what took so long?
Well, as soon as Governor Childs made the request for federal troops to come in and assist, we acted on that request. He gave me a verbal request yesterday late in the morning, about 11 o'clock in the morning. As soon as I got that verbal request, I put into motion the paperwork through the White House and the Defense Department and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. So we think we've acted quite quickly.
Governor Childs says that he had asked for help from the Federal Emergency Management Agency before Andrew even hit. Why weren't there more supplies, more people, more help early on?
Well, merely asking FEMA for assistance is not the same as asking for U.S. troops to come down. That had to be a separate request from the governor. The Federal Emergency Management Agency was here on the ground to monitor the situation, but this is a horrific situation. This is just terrible, and it's much more disastrous than people had anticipated. We're working hard to address the concerns that people have. This is a people business, and the President is committed to making sure that the basic needs of the people in this area are addressed as quickly as possible. And then we begin rebuilding families and communities. And it's going to take a lot of time.
Secretary Card, let me ask you to listen to what the director of Dade County's Emergency Management Agency said yesterday about cleanup efforts.
We're being victimized by those agencies that are supposed to be moving in here to assist us. We have a catastrophic disaster. Please come down and help us. We are looking at hours away from more casualties if we don't get this food in and this water.
Your reaction, Secretary Card?
Well, I was in her office about the same time she was making that statement, working with for officials and federal officials and military officials to address some of the problems here. I've spent time on the ground with people here. We are trying to work this problem out. It's going to take a team effort. There should be no finger pointing. We just have to address the concerns that these people have. This is a people problem. This is not a problem of government to government. This is a people problem. We've got to pull together and address those concerns.
You've been walking around the area. What do you see as the biggest problem in getting relief to the folks that have been affected?
The distribution network has been very difficult to set up. The centers that were set up for these people to go to wait out the storm are quite far apart, sometimes 4 or 5 miles apart. Getting the food and water to those centers has been difficult, but also people do not want to leave their homes. They want to stay near their homes, so they don't want to go far away to a center that could provide assistance. So you actually have a logistical challenge here of getting the goods to the people who need them so that they can also be near their homes and the memories that they have. There's going to be a big rebuilding effort.
In fact, I got a very disturbing letter from a friend of mine who had spoken with a pharmacist in South Miami. The pharmacist reported scenes of people, quote, sitting amidst rubble without food or water, dazed and confused with no means of obtaining information or traveling even a short distance for help. Does this mean some people have been without help since Monday? They've been without water or food or any help at all?
Unfortunately, I think some of that is true. I did see some people yesterday that I talked with who had not had any assistance since the storm had hit. And we are trying to address that problem. This is a very, very serious crisis. There are tens of thousands of people who have been displaced from their homes. There are a lot of people who need assistance very quickly for some of the basic concerns that they have. That's one reason the President called on the U.S. military to come in and provide that assistance. This is a humanitarian effort that the President has launched.
Secretary Card, the President was there a couple of days ago. He saw the devastation. Why didn't he call for federal troops then and there?
He cannot do that unilaterally. It has to come through the governor's office, and we worked with the governor's office in a very cooperative fashion.
Did he offer them to the governor? Did he offer that to the governor?
The governor was fully aware of the opportunities that he had.
All right, Secretary Andrew Card, thanks so much. I know you have a very busy day ahead. Thanks for taking time out to talk with us this morning.
Thank you.
We're back in a moment with more on Today, right after this.
There's big savings this weekend at Sears. All furniture and carpeting, all Craftsman tractors and mowers are on sale. And save on all appliances and all electronics throughout Grand Central. But it all ends Saturday, so get to Sears today. From the kitchen of the real Sara Lee.
You have 6 people for dinner and no time to do dessert. What do? Take out a real Sara Lee strawberry cheesecake. Swirl chocolate sauce on individual plates. Then place